Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the recent US Supreme Court decision, and I use that word charitably, to overturn the Jane Roe judgment of 1973. And I'm not going to be discussing the issues around the legislation or the decision, because I'm sure you've heard from far more knowledgeable people than me. Also, it's not my usual habit to discuss American politics. What I want to discuss is some of the parallels that led up to this with British politics, and also a little aside as to what options President Biden and the Democrats have to combat it, because they do have options. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So the US Supreme Court ruling last week is many things to many people. To me, it's supposed to be a powerful lesson. Voting matters. Consider why this ruling happened. The simplistic answer is because a load of ideological bellends in the partisan US Supreme Court, where members are chosen, remember, politically, unlike in the UK where it's still an independent process, they had enough of a majority over more sane members that they pushed this through. But that's not why this happened. That's the easy answer that gives comfort to people who should share in the responsibility and the shame. The reason it happened is because in 2016, a load of people who are right now appalled at this ruling, who say it's disgraceful, absolutely disgraceful, why couldn't it be stopped? A load of people who are thinking that right now couldn't bring themselves to vote for Hilary Clinton. Clinton herself warned specifically of this happening if Trump was elected, specifically of this issue. But some people thought they knew better. Many of those people who failed to vote for her because she wasn't their ideal candidate are now gnashing their teeth at this ruling. It's a disgrace. It's an outrage. They could have stopped it. Simple as that. As a result of their failure, the Republicans got to replace two justices with their own. This ruling is the result of clutching your pearls instead of voting for what is clearly the better option. Even if you don't like the option, even if you don't think it's great, which is the better option? And we see the same thing in the UK. We may yet see literally the same thing in the UK, but for now it's the same sort of thing. But before I go over that, this ruling is terrible and people should face up to their role in it, but it can still be countered as far as I can tell, to an extent. So as far as I can see, the Democrats have several legal ways to deal with this. And I am going to start off by saying that these options they may seem sensible. And they may seem sensible politically, but I don't know enough about American politics to say it's the sort of thing that could and should be done. But there are legal options, it seems to me, if the politics would work. Because President Biden could just take a leaf out of history's book and do what President Lincoln did under the same circumstances. The Supreme Court at the time, packed out with justices from slave estates, ruled that black people couldn't be considered American citizens or have any human rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So what did President Lincoln do? Well, he just added more justices to the court and basically ignored their ruling anyway. He said, oh, you've ruled that? I'm the president. I don't care. You know, Biden could do both of these as well. I've seen it suggested that there could be, like, say, military bases, but federal centres in general to carry out the abortions as necessary. There'd be not a damn thing states could do about it because it'd be a federal issue. But like I say, I don't know how the politics would work out. Midterms in a few months. Like, I can imagine it'd be really good for firing up the Democrat support base, basically saying, look, we can combat this, we can deal with this. But it all gets reversed if the Republicans take control of Capitol Hill again. So it would be essential to remain in control of both houses to keep going with this. But I don't know. I really don't know. Some may argue that the Republicans will just use the filibuster to block these moves. Of course they will. But that can be beaten with political will. But anyway, that was a little aside. What is of major interest for the purpose of this channel, as I say, is the lesson that voting matters. Whenever you hear someone say, oh, there's basically no difference between X and Y, where Y is the right-wing nutjob party, it's always Y that got you to believe that. And the same sort of pearl-clutching, dumbass voting decisions with far-reaching consequences has been at play in the UK as well. In the UK, I'll only go back as far as 2015. In 2015, we had two types of pearl clutching. First, Liberal Democrat voters abandoning their candidates. And yes, I've said it before and I'll say it again. It was stupid of the Lib Dems to support austerity. Despite what they say, they didn't have to. But their voters still had a choice between the Lib Dems, who were acting as a fairly pathetic break on Tory extremism, or the Tories with no break at all. Because in those sorts of areas, who was going to emerge as winners? It was going to be the Tories. You were basically choosing between Lib Dems and Tories. Similar situation for those in Labour target areas. Many people chose not to vote Labour because Ed Miliband ate a bacon sandwich and the papers convinced them that he might join the SNP. Then we got a Tory majority government. Austerity unchained. Then in 2016, the Brexit referendum. It was a tight contest. I'm not going to go on about the people who voted for Brexit because they decided to believe some idiot with a fag out of his mouth as opposed to the experts. But there were people who voted for Brexit purely because David Cameron wanted them to vote Remain. This was people, generally not very well off, who hated austerity and hated Cameron for it, and they voted for Brexit not because they wanted it, but to stick two fingers up at David Cameron. Nice one. Worth it, was it? He's living the life of a millionaire layabout, and you've got sky-high inflation and no pissing money. Bravo. Then the deal was sealed in 2019. MPs had two options left to break the Brexit deadlock. It was going nowhere. People were sick of it. They had two chances. First, a parliamentary shake-up via a general election, which is what they got, or a second referendum. We were basically there. After several years of pain, MPs were ready to give up and issue a second referendum. Then opposition parties triggered the general election option. Stupid. But the voters still had the power to end the madness. But no, more pearl clutching, and we ended up giving a delusional clown a huge majority, and here we are. And many of the people complaining the loudest are those who enabled it all here, just as in America. Some may even have enabled it with misplaced or absent voting in 2015, 2016 and 2019. The hat trick of self-destruction. What I'm saying is, voting matters. Voting always matters. Even in a first-past-the-post system, it always matters. There are no two political parties in any country that are basically the same, because that doesn't make sense. If they were basically the same, they'd be the same party. Two separate parties is always weaker than one. It means you share each other's votes because you're standing candidates against each other who will be vying for the same people's votes. That means you're less likely to get elected. It makes no sense to have two similar parties. They're all different. They're all very different. They're always different. The only people who will tell you otherwise are those who benefit from you believing it. And the ones who benefit from you believing it are not the ones with your best interests at heart. Both the Republicans in the US and the Conservatives in the UK love voter apathy. They stoke it wherever they can. Look at their tactics right now in this country. Having failed to rescue Boris Johnson's reputation, their plan is to try and smear everyone else. Make out that all politicians are as bad as each other. And you take the sting out of Johnson's disgraceful behaviour. Voter apathy is a major political weapon of Conservatives the world over. They know that they can fire up their own support base because they do that by persuading them to fear their fellow human beings. And only these right-wing nutters will protect them from themselves. Divide and rule, the oldest trick in the book. So to win, what they need to do is for their opponents not to vote at all. To use their principled voting habits to persuade them that the people they should be voting for are just as bad as they are. And when are the results ever any good? What have the Conservatives done in government that's any use to us? Like, we can credit them for getting us to join the EEC and then promoting the single market, though they are also the ones that basically have knackered it now. But it could be argued that a Labour government would have done the same thing in time, maybe even at the same time. But beyond the two good things that we can actually credit them for, which they've now pissed away, what have they done for us? Despite their other con, they always knacker household incomes. Like, even when the economic figures don't look too bad, and they always look worse than under Labour. You compare Labour and Conservative governments' economic figures. Labour always grow the economy more. It enrages me that people think the Conservatives are good with the economy. They're terrible with the economy. But even at times when the economic figures don't look too bad, Ordinary people aren't sharing in that good fortune. Their wages aren't going up. When the economy looks like it's doing well under a Tory government, workers do just as badly. It's just that the very wealthy get even more money. That's all. That's all it is. In my former profession of teaching, I think I'm absolutely correct in saying that the sector never once had a pay rise in line with inflation during the whole time the Tories have been in power. Not in one single year, let alone all of them averaged out. It's a different matter with Labour. Voting matters. It matters in the US, it matters in the UK. It matters everywhere where you have the right. I've just been asked a question, just before I came to record, someone saying, oh, in my constituency, David Davis's constituency, he won 60% of the vote. So even with lots of tactical voting, you can't overturn it. Yeah, you can. Yes, you can. Because not everyone votes. In fact, in any constituency, there's a load of people who don't vote at all. There is not the safest seat in the country, right? If all the non-voters turned up and voted for the main challenger, there's not a majority in the land that is safe. Plus, of course, we have to work on the basis that the main challenger can take some votes off the Conservative once people have decided they've had enough. Once they've decided they've had enough. But it's always important to vote, because you can look at your constituency and say, well, you know, it's always going to be this party that wins it. There's no point. You never know. All it takes is for so many people all at the same time to decide they've had enough, and all of a sudden there's not a safe seat in the land. And you don't know how everyone else is going to vote, so you just have to do it yourself. Like I said to this person, the worst thing that happens if you are acting alone, and there aren't thousands of others of you doing the same thing, the worst that happens is you get a few extra steps in that day, which isn't the worst thing to happen, is it? But it does. It matters everywhere. It matters everywhere where you've got the right to vote. And the consequences for thinking otherwise are enormous. They have been enormous in the United States. They were enormous in the UK. Vote. Really that simple. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.